We are so excited to be here today. We want to welcome you into this exclusive, awesome panel with our EBF partner, Creative Circle. And I want to, in advance, thank you all so much for taking the time to be here with us, to share all these gems that you're going to be sharing. I know we have a lot to cover, so I want to go ahead and cover some housekeeping stuff and then go right into the panel. I am Niena Drake, everyone. For those who may have not met me before, I am the Senior Director of the All Multicultural Media Professionals Network at Emmy Foundation, in addition to many other things that I do. But I am also an alum of the program, and we're most known for our internship program, but our AMP network is open to all of those who have graduated and went through our program as alum, plus all other professionals of color that want to work in media and tech across the country. And so if you have not joined yet, make sure you go to our website, BowenFoundation.org, to sign up for the AMP network, and then you will get access to me and, and all the great things that we offer as being a part of that network. It's an amazing community, and this panel is one of the benefits of being a part of that. So please go to our website, learn more about our program, what we offer in the form of internships, as well as the AMP network. And so let's get into this. I want to welcome our amazing panelists from our partner, Creative Circle. We have at Emmy Bowen multiple media and tech partners, and Creative Circle is an amazing partner of ours that sits in a more interesting space than what you all may know other brands do. And so I want to give Ashleigh an opportunity to explain and share what Creative Circle is as a brand and a company, and how you all can work with Creative Circle.
Thank you so much, Niena, and thank you so much to Emmy Bowen Foundation. It's been wonderful partnering with you on this and past collaborations. So for those who are not familiar with Creative Circle, we are a marketing and creative services company that helps candidates find their next opportunity. And we do that by partnering with clients to find solutions for their business challenges, for their projects. When we really boil it down, we connect people to those projects. We build flex benches. We provide studio or agency services. We also are bread and butter, filling the contract and full-time roles. And we also introduce subject matter experts to clients who are looking for consultative partners. So really runs the gamut. You'll see us finding and filling a whole spectrum of roles. And like I said, we're so excited to partner with Emmy Bowen Foundation for this webinar. And yeah, big shout out to our panelists here, Maria and Ramsay. Before we dive into our conversation, I thought it'd be kind of helpful to do a little bit of a tour of Creative Circle, if you will. So what I'm actually going to do is share my screen real quick and show a couple pieces of our website that you might find helpful as job seekers. So at the, as I mentioned, you know, being a services company, we do offer a wide variety of solutions, a whole spectrum of services. And our clients range from Fortune 500 companies, top agencies across North America, brands and organizations. And we're really excited to have this partnership with Emmy Bowen Foundation. This is our main page where you'll learn a little bit more about Creative Circle. And then as we dive a little bit deeper, I wanted to share some of the roles that we place. As you can see, a variety here between AI, user experience, design, art direction, marketing, you name it. As far as career resources, we can be a resource to you throughout your entire job hunt. You know, aside from us really sourcing for open roles, we also have a variety of resources here on your fingertips. So you can see guides for building out your resume, building out your portfolio, an interview guide. And then something that I know that we wanted to talk a little bit more about and plug really is our salary guide. So you are able to, on our website, search for salaries here, and these are giving you data-informed insights in terms of what types of range that you could be looking for. And this is data informed by the roles that we're currently working on. Awesome. So I will be keeping an eye on the chat. We can throw those links into the chat as well. But I'd love to invite our panelists to come and introduce themselves. Ramsay, if you would go ahead and start.
You're on mute.
Just when I thought I pressed mute, I didn't. Well, thanks, Ashleigh. And I'm excited to be here because I am also a proud Emma Bowen alum, class of 2009. I interned with Time Warner Cable, then Comcast. So it's a full circle moment, not to, pun intended, I guess, pun not intended with Creative Circle, but I'm an HBCU graduate. I went to Florida A&M University. I started at Creative Circle in 2014 as a recruiter, and today I serve as the operations manager for Houston and Austin. And so I'm really excited because I also don't want to forget, I was the one who introduced Creative Circle to Emma Bowen. So just keeping that full circle pun going, it really is a full circle moment.
Awesome. Love it. I am Maria Kaiser. I'm the manager of internal recruiting. I feel so honored and lucky to be here. I've partnered with the Emma Bowen Foundation for the internship program, which was lovely. Also, some of you might have met me at the career fair, which was amazing. So just really looking forward to spending time with you again today.
Amazing.
Wonderful. As you all can see, we have an amazing group, and I just want to top line the fact that you all are amazing in what you do, but the fact that the viewers and everyone watching has access to ask your questions. And I will just tell y'all right now, if you have questions based off of what we shared or as we're sharing, please add those immediately into the chat or the Q&A section so that we can get to those before we wrap, because I know there's going to be a lot. And I know that this is very exclusive access that you don't normally get to recruiters or people in the hiring positions at companies. And that's why this is so, so special. So I'm just going to top line that. Like, thank y'all again for being here. And thank you for everybody that's tuned in, but also get those questions in right now. Okay, I'll send it back to Ashleigh for you to kick it off, and let's get into the topics.
Absolutely. So let's get into it. Let's really tackle how we tackle job searches, right? So something that I found so interesting in preparing for this webinar is Ramsay made an incredible point that this is not something that's typically taught in like a job search 101 class in college, or it really becomes a skill that you grow, that you build, that you refine from experience. And I would love to kick it right off to Ramsay and ask, like, what advice do you have for job seekers, especially in our current market?
Yeah, I'll try to make this as succinct as possible, especially for my fellow note takers who want to jot this down. I think the first thing is it starts with understanding what you're actually seeking. Before you start applying for things, you want to know what you're looking for. It's a balance of understanding what your personal skill set is and where you will thrive and add value in a position, as well as when you're looking at descriptions, knowing, okay, do I align with those things? The second thing is going to be make sure you're flexible in your search. Right now, especially, the market is incredibly competitive. So there used to be this like hierarchy of things, or a chain of command, if you will. Junior level candidates applied for junior roles, entry for entry, mid-level, mid-level. Now it's kind of a free-for-all. So if you're senior level, you need work, you may be applying for things that are more junior or mid-level. And so you want to make sure that your application and everything is really buttoned up before you even begin, right? And then another big one I want to make sure I note is you don't want to put all of your eggs in one basket. Finding a job is a job. And so, they also say it's easier to find a job when you have a job. But when you don't have one, your job is looking for work. So you can't just look at one avenue. It can't just be LinkedIn. It can't just be, your network. You also want to consider resources like Creative Circle and staffing companies, or in our case, marketing and creative services companies that might be able to help in addition to your personal network and some other organizations, like if you're a part of NABJ or AMA, your local university chapters, that's a really good place to start. Can extend that network. Don't just get so caught up in the immediate, because you never know which avenue is going to be where you actually find that opportunity.
And to your point, and adding to that, it doesn't hurt when, if you're applying for a job, you get referred in multiple ways. Like say someone from that you used to work with through LinkedIn, they refer you. And then another associate that you met at a networking event through an organization, they refer you. Like it's just stacking those opportunities and channels on top of each other. So
Absolutely.
think of it that way. So you don't feel like there's only one route. There's multiple lanes.
I so appreciate that visual of multiple lanes, and also your testament, Ramsay, of being flexible. You mentioned like kind of about the skill level, but I also think about the maybe the vertical of work or the type of company that you might be interested in working with. Like I recall a time when I graduated college and I was like, I so want to only work in print publishing, and that was wanted to work at a big magazine. And the truth of it, if I had been so rigid in that particular niche, it would have really limited the opportunities that I had. So I'm forever grateful for the recruiter that I met with that said, there's so much out there. Let's expand to what else that you're looking for. It was interesting as this came up, a question came in through the chat that was talking about flexibility in terms of the timeline. One of the job seekers here mentioned that it's feeling more and more common that jobs are being placed on hold. And I'd be curious to you, Ramsay, I'm sure being a frontline recruiter, you're seeing this as well. Any insight, and I know we can't necessarily answer why this is happening, but maybe some reasons that you've experienced.
Yeah, man, and I want to make this succinct because my brain is like, there's so many different reasons. But the truth is the landscape of hiring, the landscape of looking for work has changed. And so even if you think going back to old school traditional, like I put my resume in, I spell checked it, everything looked good, I should get an interview. Unfortunately, it's not enough. And we'll get into this a little bit more, but there's some things you can use to increase the odds of being seen. But I am noticing the same thing on our end. Companies are being a lot more purposeful and strategic in their hires. There used to be a time, I use this example often, when a client said, I need a copywriter. And then we would be like, great, here's a list of 5 really strong copywriters that just are great at writing, attention to detail, etc. Those guys are gone. Now a client is saying, I need a copywriter who's versed in AP style, who's worked in the media industry, who's used, like they're very specific. And if you don't meet those requirements, that's a challenge. But then also their needs change. Ashleigh mentioned earlier, we offer flex benches for clients because sometimes companies are hiring for full-time, but they don't really need full-time. Maybe they need support for a temporary campaign or a contract. And so things are a little bit more fluid. And that's why we mentioned being flexible, because unfortunately, there are no guarantees. We would like to think there are, but there aren't. So if you're flexible, you're able to move as things move, right? And you're keeping your feet moving. So we get excited about this potential opportunity, but I'm still thinking and applying for other things just in case this doesn't pan out, because we don't know what's going to happen. Don't put all of your eggs in that basket. Keep moving.
And I agree, there's so many reasons why a position might be on hold. And we'll talk a little bit about the communication job applicant to recruiter, but I do think asking outright, like, when would be a good time for me to follow up? If they have insight, I feel like they would be able to give you an idea, but there's also a chance that their client, their own hiring manager is saying, hold for now. So thank you for that question. In preparing for this conversation, Ramsay, you also mentioned a really important, I think, insightful exercise of doing a job audit, and that this could be really helpful in making sure you're on the right track of finding your next role. Can you share a little bit more about what that would look like?
Absolutely. So I think it starts with tracking your search. If you're a paper and pen person, do that. I'm more of an Excel spreadsheet girl myself, but literally I would strategically, I would say, these are the companies I applied to. This was the title of the job. Keep a running list. I applied. Did I get a call back? if I didn't get a call back, why? And I would audit not just day to day, but maybe like give it week to week, maybe 2-week time frame. Because what you might notice is maybe it's your resume. If the common thread is you're not getting any interviews, let's revisit that resume and say, what is it in my resume that's missing? Is my portfolio not outlining the right examples of my work? If you're able to get feedback, always ask for feedback. Will you always get it? Not necessarily, but it's good to ask because then you're able to learn and seek that knowledge to then pivot to what you're learning. I'm sure everyone's like, I asked for feedback. No one says anything. A lot of companies use what is called an ATS system whenever they are seeking and tracking their applicants, which is a computer system that's checking for keywords. So if you're looking at the description and your resume doesn't list any of those keywords, you're never going to get picked in that line of candidates. So that's why you want to make sure you're tracking to see what's happening. I mean, everyone who's already joined this call today who is ahead of the game because you're already seeking the knowledge to gain a better understanding of the process. And I think it starts there, like asking yourself, how's it going? Am I tapped into my network? What technology are people in the industry using? Am I using those technologies? It starts there.
And to add to what Ramsay just said, I would just break down ATS is for anyone who's never heard of that term. If you join my LinkedIn webinar, you have heard that many times. It stands for applicant tracking systems. And these are software programs that different companies, small and large companies, use to filter through candidates. And like she said, you basically have to make sure that you're using the proper keywords and phrases that are in those job descriptions. They are created for a reason, ladies and gentlemen. Please do not just skim through a job description. Take those keywords that are truthful, genuine, and honest to your experience and make sure that you're using those keywords. If it says they need someone who is really skilled in Adobe Photoshop Suite or whatever, make sure that you have that listed and don't just say, I can use graphic design programs. You understand what I'm saying? So be very specific because the ATS systems are being specific in filtering you out. And in order for you to get to a human, you have to get past the computer system.
Absolutely. It's a great example. Adobe Creative Suite or Adobe Creative Cloud, say Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign.
Period. Yep, exactly.
We wanted to talk a little bit about LinkedIn, and I wanted to pass this on over to Niena because I know you've actually hosted a LinkedIn workshop in the past. So tell us a little bit about that.
So LinkedIn is just one of the tools, as we've shared, that you can utilize for your job search. There are very strategic and specific things that you should be doing within LinkedIn to maximize your opportunity to be seen, be noticed, and be, apply for a position. So I would say for the most part, when it comes to LinkedIn, make sure your profile is up to par and sharp and very full and detailed. You have the luxury of having a more thorough explanation of your job experience on LinkedIn versus a one-page resume. And you all please chime in and share your thoughts on this. But I feel like if you have less than 5 to 8 years of experience, your resume should be one page. But with LinkedIn, you have the option to pretty much make it as long as you want to. And that's great because you add additional information to the work that you do, as well as media clips, things that you are legally able to share. Don't share anything as media clips if you are not legally able to do that. But make sure that you're adding those media clips. Make sure you're filling out your summary because that's like, your intro to who you are can share more bit about your personality, as well as it's like a semi cover letter / bio / pitch on your LinkedIn page. Maximize every single space that LinkedIn offers to you, as well as getting references. Because if I'm looking at your resume and it looks good, I'm going to go to LinkedIn to see if I can learn more about you, right? And if you have not taken the time to deep dive into sharing who you are on LinkedIn, you're missing a really great opportunity for hiring professionals like Ashleigh, Ramsay, and Maria to see you in a whole nother light and get excited about who you are as a candidate. So I just encourage you all to really, really take time to learn LinkedIn, use it, engage, post, share, like, and be very, very thorough with your profile. And join my LinkedIn workshop when I do it.
Ramsay, Maria, anything else to add on the LinkedIn front?
Yeah, sure. I love LinkedIn. I always say she is my queen when I am looking for a candidate. So to Niena's point, yes, absolutely keep it up to date. Also, if you are open to work, there is a toggle for that. I generally start my searches there. So you definitely want to have that on. The good news is if you are working at a company and you have that on, no one in your company can see it. So don't be like, oh no, I'm so nervous. No, 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 no. It'll just be me on the other end seeing it, which is great. And you want that. Also job description wise, Ramsay said this, but keywords are so very important. So definitely review the job descriptions that are calling to you, right? And then make sure those keywords are reflected. And again, truthfully, as Niena said, in your LinkedIn, because that's how I search. I'm searching for keywords. Also skill sets, like beef up your LinkedIn as much as possible. And also add a little personality because I'm looking at pages and pages of LinkedIn, right? And then all of a sudden someone has dog lover and I can't help it. I love dogs. I have 3 of them. And yeah, I'm going to stop. I'm like, oh, is that a picture with a dog? Hello. But seriously, if you add a little something, something, you're going to get the attention of whoever you're looking to attract.
That's a really good point. I would even argue, well, first off, I would say LinkedIn is like a must-have. There used to be a time where people was like, I'm not on LinkedIn, but it's like, if you're not, what are you doing? Especially if you're in a professional, any type of professional field. So that's number one, but it's a extension of you and your brand. And so to everyone's point, if you don't have it and it doesn't speak to who you are, if there's no photo there, if the fields are not filled in, it's like, who is this? And the first thing a client typically or a hiring manager is going to do is they're going to review that resume and compare it to your LinkedIn profile. So you want to make sure that the two coincide, that they match, right? That the timeline is the same, etc. But also you want to make sure that you're including, like Maria was saying, keywords, but the things that you think aren't necessary. Like there's always anything that you can type in LinkedIn is searchable for someone who is searching for a particular role. So even if you're like, oh, my title, marketing manager or media producer, that's great. But what do you do as a media producer? Are you working, with a certain, category, vertical, etc.? Put that in there because it could be the difference between your name showing up and not showing up in LinkedIn.
One other thing I would like to add, and this is a recommendation that I make in my workshop and to anyone that I talk to about LinkedIn, is say you live in Iowa, but you want to move to New York or LA. And the jobs that you are applying for are actually in those 2 cities. Another really important place that is searchable is your location. And so what I suggest to people is if you are open to relocating without the company hiring you to pay for expenses of relocation, change it on your LinkedIn profile. But be ready to move. Be ready to move immediately. Don't change it unless you are actively ready to move. You already have some things in place and you're ready to take action immediately, and you can show up for the interviews and everything within that process. Another way, if you don't feel comfortable changing your actual location and you want to leave it where you are, that I recommend is putting that in your summary. In your summary, you can state, I do all these things. I am open to these specific opportunities, and I'm also open to relocating. While I'm in Iowa, I am excited about possibilities and opportunities in New York and LA and et cetera, right? So that's just 2 options for how you can address the issue of you not physically being where you ultimately want to be or where the positions are that you're applying for. Because I know there's probably multiple people that are watching now or that will watch that have that question, like, how do I address location on LinkedIn and my resume? And so I don't know if there's anything you all would add to that, but yeah. And if the company covers your moving costs, hallelujah, right? But if they don't, you're still ready to go and you're in motion already. I'm not saying, oh, I got to find somewhere to live. No. Get a P.O. box, be ready to sleep on a couch and move and be ready to go, because that opportunity is probably open to so many people that are already there. So you're competing higher on a higher level to people who are already local, aka wherever you want to be.
So many things to be thinking about and so intentional when you're creating that. Like, I love that you mentioned the LinkedIn being an extension of your own brand. So why not tell the whole story? One thing that comes to mind, especially as we're speaking about keywords in your resume and your portfolio and your experience, is artificial intelligence, right? This is becoming more and more commonly talked about, seeked out. And I would love to hear from you, Maria, understanding like how should candidates showcase the AI skills that they have in an application, in a resume, in their interview?
Absolutely. Yeah. So it's going to go back, friends, keywords. It's going to go right back to it, right? If you've used it, even if it's in your personal life, I know ChatGPT is a friend of mine. So if you've used it in your personal life and it's also very user friendly, throw it on the resume, right? Why not? Throw it in your LinkedIn. Also, be careful not to just put AI. Right, we want to type out artificial intelligence because I'll tell you, as a recruiter, I can't look up AI, or every word that has AI in it will pop up. Not a good time. So break it down, put machine learning, something like that. But again, even if you've, and you always want to be truthful, but if you're a beginner, what have you, you've messed with like Dolly, Chat GPT, Canva, just add the words. So all about keywords.
Awesome. I love that. I love that.
And I would just add, if you're using AI for your resume, proofread it, please.
Yes.
Because recruiters can tell that you didn't proofread the AI resume that you just submitted. They can tell. They're professionals. You cannot fool them and not proofread. AI is a supplement to your resume. It is not your resume creator. Just want to put that out there.
Yeah. And just, I mean, that's a great reminder to piggyback off of that. Like AI is a tool like anything else, right? So it doesn't replace that human touch. So even if you utilize it, great. But to Niena's point, yes, take a hot second and review it before you send it off.
Now, one thing that AI cannot do for you is the follow-up. And I can imagine that every recruiting and hiring manager operates a little bit differently in terms of what their timeline is, what their process is. I would love to hear from you both, Ramsay and Maria, about your perspective and how candidates have reached out to you in the past, how that's been effective as they are applying for a role or as they have already applied for a position. Ramsay, do you want to kick us off?
Sure. In my personal experience as an applicant, I have actually done this thing and it helped me get a job. I found the position, applied for the role first, and then followed up with the hiring manager and sent a note, nothing long, not a cover letter. They don't need all of that because they don't have time for that. And I literally just said, just applied for this position I saw you had, was very interested in it because of my experience doing XYZ. And while it may be a bit forward for me to reach out, I did just want to make sure I raised my hand so you knew of my interest. She wrote me back and she was like, I'd love to meet with you. And I appreciate you sending this message because it is what made me stand out as an applicant. Now, I think it is smart to do that. However, there's always caution to everything that you do. I don't recommend going to every single job you apply to and then just messaging a bunch of people on LinkedIn or emailing a bunch of people blindly. And certainly, please do not copy the same message over and over again. And here's why. It needs to be tailored to the person you're speaking with. When you're responding, find the connection. Did you go to the same university? Did you work at a similar company in the past? Like, make sure they understand why you feel they are who you need to talk to about this particular role. Don't take it personally if you don't hear back. It's not guaranteed, but it is another way of just trying to get yourself, seen. It's important, though, cautioning, There's no guarantees. They don't owe you a response, because I get a lot of applicants day in and day out, and they all look the same, like all of them. And the majority of the time, it's very presumptuous. Like, I saw you have this role. I'm a good fit. What do I need to do? Who are you? Like, I don't even know who you are. And I have to sift through them. And sure, I would love to sit there and respond to all the people who say I'm interested, but I simply don't have the time. That would take weeks just to apply to those people. But when I am sifting through, I'm like, let me take a look. I want to fill my job, so let me look and see why they're a fit. And if you've taken the time to show me the why, then I'm going to respond to you.
I feel like she covered it. I mean, goodness gracious. No, I absolutely agree 100%. Everyone functions differently. Some recruiters will want to answer every single person in their inbox, but sometimes it's just not possible. And yes, copy and pasting the same message will get you absolutely nowhere. But to Ramsay's point, short and sweet. Always on LinkedIn, in an email, that's what we like. Like, who are you? Why are you reaching out? What do you need? What are next steps? Something like that. So yeah, I agree 100%.
I think two things that you mentioned in this is like making sure that you're prepared and you're being very intentional in the message that you're sending out, and also that you're doing it after the fact. Like when you should have all your ducks in a row and ready, the application in, your resume set, your LinkedIn ready, so that if someone is going to engage in with you and look on your LinkedIn, they're not saying something that's still like in process. And it was interesting as we were preparing for this conversation, this came up very organically, and I was like, oh, is that something that happens a lot? And just yesterday, there was an article that popped up in my newsfeed that had a former Google recruiter saying that that was actually their number one thing that they recommend to applicants. But again, making sure that your message is succinct, it's very intentional, and that you've done already everything that they're asking for in terms of applying for the position. So now we get to get a little bit deeper into the nuts and bolts of working with recruiters. And I'd love to hear some best practices that you would like to share. This has come up a couple of in our Q&A as well. Best practices from your own perspective. Maria, we can start off with you.
Awesome. So I would say always understand a timeline. And again, since every recruiter works differently, maybe some aren't upfront about it. So you're going to have to ask, and that's okay. Because as a recruiter, that's our job, right? We should be managing your expectations to the best that we can. So it's not, how often should I follow up? But when should I follow up with you? I can tell you that working with me, I always am like, hey, I'm working with a lot of people, right? So if you don't hear from me by next Wednesday, shoot me an email touching base. I love a follow-up. So again, just asking for that, understanding the timeline, and just keeping the lines of communication open, right? So even asking the recruiter, like, what's your best form of communication? I love an email. I might be running my mouth on the phone all day. So if you call me, I'm not going to pick up, but I can multitask. So other people might be different. They might say, hey, like, let's jump on a Zoom, let's do this. So it's really all around communication, and don't be afraid to ask, right? Because if you're thinking the question, you're not asking it, and then you're like, oh, am I annoying them? First of all, you're not. You're not annoying anyone. So always feel free to reach out. Again, after having that conversation with the recruiter and understanding what makes sense with the timeline. Ramsay?
Yeah. I'm nodding and I'm like, okay, this is my thought. When it comes to recruiters, I think first it helps to define what it is that we do, right? I think the misconception is just like recruiters place jobs. Yeah, that's a part of it. But to really make it easy to understand, we are matchmakers. Literally. Like if you think about a dating matchmaker who you go to them and you're like, I need you to help me find my match. They're going to ask you a series of questions to get to know you and get to understand like what you're seeking. And then as they meet people, right? Key thing, as they meet people who have certain qualities, they're saying, I know who might be a good match for this person. Now, that is different than what people assume we do, which is that I am sitting here and I am thinking about Ashleigh Martinez all day, and that every single time I see a job, I'm like, can Ashleigh do this job? Can Ashleigh? That's not how it works, especially within an organization like Creative Circle. So once you understand that, your recruiter is your partner. And in order for them to be successful, they have to make the correct match, not just help you find jobs, make the right match. That's number one. But number two, we are human beings. We're people. These are our jobs and our livelihood. So we want to do it well, right? So it feels personal because finding a job is personal. It is your livelihood. However, as a recruiter, I'm not just supporting one person. I'm supporting many, many, many people. And all of them are saying the same thing, help. So I'm doing the best that I can to juggle. And so when talking to recruiters, try to grant them a little bit of grace. Follow up and ask questions because you need to know. It's good to be informed and right. Like this is your livelihood, and no one wants to put you in an uncomfortable situation. We want to help you get to that goal. And then we're successful when we help you get to that goal. But think of it like a partnership. They're here to help you find the right match. And not every matchmaker is successful at finding a match, right? We may not be able to be the one to help you find something, but it's one more potential opportunity to find that right match for you.
I greatly appreciate that insight too. And I think the individualized approach is really important, recognizing that they're going to be recruiters are working on so many different roles with so many different clients who have all these different specific needs that you might not be privy to all of that information. It might not be included in the job description just because of the nature of the search. Now, one question that just popped up in the Q&A was asking for feedback, something that you mentioned already, Ramsay. Is it appropriate to ask a recruiter what the feedback has been on other candidates that they've interviewed? So wanting to get insight on what the hiring manager or team is thinking to help validate if they're a good fit or not. And I feel like there's kind of like, this is like a yes and a no question. It's kind of my, yeah, go ahead and share your insights.
Maria, did you want to go first?
Sure. That's a first of all, great question. Thanks for the question. I would say you can absolutely ask the recruiter that. One, well, as it goes, they may share that information with you, they may not, but I think that it's a great way to put yourself out there. And honestly, there's nothing the recruiter, in my mind, can really lose from sharing that information with you. You don't know the other people. So it can definitely give you an edge. I would say the only downside would be if maybe the recruiter didn't get feedback, which unfortunately, as wild as this may sound, we don't always get feedback. Especially, when I was sitting in a recruiting seat, working with a bunch of different clients, sometimes they ghost us too, right? So we want to share that feedback. But yeah, that's a great question. And yeah, go for it. I would empower you to ask that question.
I love this question as well. One thing I like to tell people or any of my candidates that I'm working with, when you're interviewing for a job, you're interviewing them and they are interviewing you. It's a two-way street. So when you're working with a recruiter, number one, to answer the question, it is okay to ask your recruiter that question. But and it depends on the recruiter, but the way that I guess you pose the question is not what are they saying about other candidates or like what are they saying about those people in comparison to me, but like what are you noticing in this process that has worked or has not worked or has been beneficial or has not? Because what can happen is, and I'm the first, I will say like, I want to fill this job. I had a candidate interview and this is what they did that did not go well. So when I get to this next candidate, I'm going to say, listen, this is what you need to focus on. These 3 areas, because if you don't, and you go on this tangent, you're putting yourself in a bad place only because I know that information. Now, if I don't have it, I can't share it. But this brings the thought, like, number one, many times it's not why not you. Many times it's why that other person. Looking for work feels so personal. I can't stress it enough because it's your livelihood again, but isn't always personal. You got to think we're dealing with people here, hiring managers who just want to find the person to do this job that they need. And they have a task list, they're trying to meet it. Do you meet the task list? Yes or no? If you don't, sorry. Doesn't mean they hate you, just means it's not the right fit. And you don't want to be in a job where you're not the right fit. So let's keep moving, right? So it's good to ask those questions to your recruiter. Yes.
I love that. And I think that the way that you're framing the question, like you could ask, like, now that you've seen all the applicants or you've identified someone that you're going to move forward, what gaps do I have, right? Maybe it's experience wise, maybe it's a certification, maybe there's a skills gap or a program that you haven't yet mastered, but it's getting more of that insight to help you become more marketable for other roles. Incredible. Well, we've talked a lot about the nuts and bolts, and now we want to move a little bit into like the relationship building. And we know it's so important to build relationships with recruiters. Sometimes these relationships last a very long time as the job market ebbs and flows. So can you share a little bit, Maria, we'll start with you, about that importance of building those relationships and how to do it?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, LinkedIn is great for building these relationships, personalizing a message, making some sort of connection that you might see in my LinkedIn profile that maybe, again, we went to the same college, something like that. Super important. Also, reaching out to recruiters, and I'm speaking more from an internal glance, so more at, not a staffing firm, right? Reaching out to recruiters when you're interested in the company, but you don't see any openings is okay. Because I love having these conversations, right? I might say, hey, look, we're not hiring right now. Why don't we hop on a brief call? Because I'd love to learn more about you and your background. And guess what? I cannot tell you how many people are sitting at Creative Circle today that I spoke with when we weren't hiring. And then all of a sudden a job came up and I'm like, oh yeah, I spoke to this person. So I think that, just because a company is not hiring, don't be afraid to put yourself out there in that way. Start building that relationship. And going back to following up, hey, I hear you, I understand you're not hiring right now. What time frame makes sense? Now you might hear, I don't have a crystal ball. I have no idea. I would love to be working 1,000 jobs right now and I'm not, but still they will provide you with some sort of an answer, right? So yeah, I would say networking's huge. Get on LinkedIn, even talk to your friends of friends. Everybody knows someone, right? So it's like, who do you know? How can I work in your network? What can I also do for you? Maybe you have a connection that somebody would like to talk to. So networking, following up, and having conversations. That's the best way to do it. Ramsay, tossing it over.
Yeah, no, I don't have much to add to it. It's a business of people, right? Like you're working with other human beings. So relationship, I heard you say the word relationship, Maria, it really comes from there. Think about you're willing to work with people that you know who you can trust what they say, right? Or yeah. So if you start there and you make it a personalized interaction, you'll get much further than here's this thing, what can I get? They don't owe you anything. So they're like, I can't help you. But if you approach from a genuine interest and all of that, like Maria said, leaps and bounds makes a difference.
I so appreciate that insight, Ramsay and Maria. And Niena, I'd love to hear from you. I know this question was originally posed for recruiters, but being part of an organization like BowenFoundation, talk about relationship building, right? So what other things would you recommend?
It's a really, really, really important part of the entire process. And I feel like you don't want it to feel transactional at all. That's really important. I always start and I tell everyone, lead with help, lead with help, lead with help, period. Don't always be asking to take something. I need, can you do this for me? That is going to make everyone that you reach out to and contact or come in contact with, make it feel transactional for you. So I encourage you all to lead with help and make sure that you are being intentional about actually building a relationship that is long-term and not just short in the way of trying to get what you need out of the situation, because they're not going to want to help you as much. And it's not going to feel good to think of you when they think of you, because they're gonna be like, all this person does is they only call when they need something. Have we not felt that way in some dynamic of our life? And it doesn't feel like that. It doesn't feel good personally, and it absolutely is the same. It does not feel good professionally. And no, you don't have to be friends with everyone, but you really do want to build great business relationships that are long-term and not feel transactional in any way.
We all have that friend, right? They only call when they need something.
Or we don't anymore. They don't exist anymore, right?
They don't exist. Yes, exactly. We haven't put our energy in that relationship in a while. So let's pivot a little bit and talk about growing where you are currently, right? At your current company and your current role. So many of the themes that we've covered here are incredibly applicable. And I'd love to hear from each of you, like, what advice do you have for people who are looking to optimize where they are now? Ramsay, if you want to kick us off.
Ooh, this is one of my favorite things to talk about. I think it starts with taking ownership of your career. Many times people get in jobs, and I don't know where we got this from. Maybe it's because of like that transition from college into being into a position. You feel like someone is going to then tell you what to do next. No one is going to tell you what to do. I'm telling you that right now. And no one is just, you might get some people that give you a handout, but that typically is not how it's happening. If you talk to most people, I'm sure everyone on this call, they got somewhere in their careers because they asked to learn more, or they ask for more opportunity. So I think it starts by, number one, saying it's not my manager's responsibility to make sure I'm growing or I'm developing. That falls on me. And then seek opportunities to learn new things and challenge yourself. Companies want to hire people and have people working for them that want or are hungry to learn and bring more to their position. So ask, how can you do that? Right. And then if you find that you're asking those questions and you're not getting the answers, then you need to be asking yourself, is this a place for me? Is my development being stunted here? Am I able to move forward? That old saying, closed mouths don't get fed. If you don't ask questions, if you don't advocate for yourself, then it's okay if the answer is no. Don't be afraid of no. Maybe the answer isn't no. Maybe it's not right now. Right. But if you don't ask, you'll never know, and you can't grow. So that's my take. Start by, taking ownership in your career and asking questions.
I love that. I wholeheartedly agree. Taking ownership is huge. I would say also keeping an open and active dialogue with your manager, right? Being really transparent about what you want. And then I know my manager was lucky enough for me, shared that looking at your career, it's not always a ladder, right? Like, how can I go up? How can I go up? It's also a lattice. So what else, what other skills can I go? Even if I'm going this way as opposed to this way, it's all going to bring me upward in my career. So I really hold that near and dear to me, because sometimes, listen, maybe the next upward position is managing people, and that's not for you, but you want to manage programs. Well, what does that look like, right? So it's really thinking outside of the box as well. And just openly communicating.
I love that visual of a lattice and how much it's grown. And I'll share even, my perspective here is like, don't put LinkedIn on snooze. Learn what other roles are developing out there with other companies, because there could be an opportunity to create that similar role or that department within your own company. So I love that, being proactive, really owning your own growth, using your manager as a resource, but then also getting inspiration about what other companies are doing.
Can I just add one thing to that? And it's probably to kind of piggyback off of it, but to have a long-term vision of your career. So when you're job searching now, you know that you want to work at this company. When you go in to interview for that job, make sure that you express clearly that you look at the relationship with that company as a long-term relationship. I'm excited to start at this position, but I see myself in 3 levels above this, and I can't wait to go on this journey with you in this job and at this company. I love the brand. You understand what I'm saying? Like, you have to, when you show a recruiter or a hiring manager, anyone that you're interviewing with, that you see a long-term vision for that relationship with you at that company, that puts them at ease, because no one wants to keep hiring for the same position every year. And I hate to say that I think there's a shift in perspective of long-term placement that has happened over the past 5 to 10 years. Whereas, yeah, old school ways was you get one job and you stay at that one job for 20 years, right? It's not that way anymore. But we're now in a place of extremes where people are like, I'm just gonna stay here for a year and I'm out. That's not exciting to hear or even to feel, because recruiters and hiring managers, they know if you're there for short term. They can tell. So if you really see yourself at a company long term, be very expressive to everyone you talk to at that company that you want to be there, and you want to be there for a long haul. It's a journey for you. This is not just, I'm just coming in to do this job because I need the money or whatever. No, or you're in and out. No, they want you to grow. They want to help you grow within the company, so they don't have to keep hiring for the same job. So don't be fly by night. And I said this, in another interview I did, but I was like, you will miss your blessings and the opportunity if you're moving too fast. So don't be jumping in and out. It's like a jump rope. No, don't do that. Give yourself time. Know before you walk in the door, while you're interviewing, and even while you're there. Be very communicative to your managers and everyone at the company that you want to stay if you're already somewhere that you like. So
Niena, I'm so glad you said that, because it reminds me of this very conversation that we're having today. I mentioned at the top of the call that I had the opportunity to introduce Creative Circle to Emma Bowen, and that's because I'm vested and invested in this company. This company is a part of who I am. And so when I'm thinking about how can we do what we do better and how can we reach more people, Emma Bowen made sense to me. Now, if I didn't say anything, no one would have been the wiser, right? But that shows the people here, Ramsay appreciates, values, and understands what we do. And so all I did was write up a little email and say, like, I was an Emma Bowen scholar and I loved them, and sent it to the right people. And they were like, let me look into this. But it's because they understood that I truly cared. That makes the difference. People can, like you said, people can see through the fake, and you won't be able to get very far because of it. Be genuine in your interest.
Genuine and intentional. I think just like that natural connector, Ramsay, like it's not a surprise how successful you are at Creative Circle and how successful you were with Emma Bowen Foundation. There was one more piece that I just wanted to ask Maria about. She had shared some advice about like building case studies along the way. This is like more so working with your current manager, your management team. Anything else to kind of build that visual for us, Maria?
Yeah, I would say when you're looking to grow in your role, you want to show how you're already adding value and how much further you can take it. So if we're talking about case studies, it's, those wins where it's like, oh my gosh, I did the thing. I'm so excited. Hold on to that. Put it in an email. Like I had in my Outlook inbox, I literally had a folder that said yays. And anytime I caught myself like, yes, I threw it in the folder. Case study, right? So then when you talk to your manager, you're like, hey, this is the thing that I did. I'm super proud of it. This is what I'd like to continue doing. And here's how I can take it a step further. So it's building the case study, remembering, showing that value, and then asking for what you want 100%.
That's awesome. Thank you. And as we close out this conversation, we have a couple Q&As that I want to do a rapid fire with, but we understand that there might be some people that need to log off right at that end time. So I wanted to make sure that we highlighted some of those resources to help our guests here plan and strategize their career trajectory. I shared a little bit about the salary guide. We'll make sure that we include that with Emma Bowen Foundation when they send out that roundup. We'll include all the links that we spotlit today. But Ramsay, can you talk about other resources that live on our website and also share how attendees can get in touch with you?
Yeah, sure. So you already mentioned the guides, so that's going to be one thing. I'll put my LinkedIn in the chat here in a second. But I was just going to say, honestly, pay attention to what Niena and Emma Bowen are sharing because they give such great resources. And I get these emails as well. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's really cool. I don't necessarily need some of them. So it's like, but you know, I think they're great. And going back to what I said earlier, it's really about your network, staying, continue to learn, just be inquisitive and wanting to learn and staying curious, and you'll be fine.
And Maria, what else do we have?
What else do we have? Well, we have a beautiful candidate newsletter you could sign up for. You could check out our blog, follow us on LinkedIn and Instagram. You can absolutely feel free to link in with me and touch base from time to time. And if you ask, I'll even tell you how often to do that. Watch out. So, but yes, just keep communicating.
I love that. And an incredible thank you, not only to Emma Bowen Foundation, but for all the attendees today. Thank you so much. This has been such a fun collaboration, and we got a couple minutes here to do a hot seat round of questions if we're ready. So I'm going to really pose these to anyone who'd like to answer. One guest asked, how do we navigate applying to entry-level positions that require years of external experience that we might not have yet, but maybe we could learn on the job? Are there any recommendations that you might have?
Sure, this depends on the role. If it is a job in the description, if the description says you need to have this experience, I hate to tell you, but you have to have it. There's not really, there used to be a time where there was a workaround, but outside of that, there really won't be. What I recommend though, is if you're able to do like mock or examples of what you do, like we live in a great time where you've got access to so many different tools and resources, YouTube, etc. You know, put your reel on YouTube, you know, create the content that they're asking for in the description, if able to. If the role is a little bit different, like, I don't know, say copywriter or marketing professional, give examples from what you did during your coursework at school. But honestly, it is going to be trying to find that role that is seeking the entry-level person, because there are companies that need that person. It's hard to, I know, it's discouraging, but it's the truth.
But you know what, to your point, a lot of jobs I've noticed, if they say, even if you don't go read the full description, everyone, period. And sometimes the employer will list at the bottom where it says, even if you don't have what we're requesting in requirements, please still feel free to apply and share why you think you're a good candidate. Some jobs are now putting that on the job description. So if you do see that, then that's an open door for you to apply. But if you do not have that 3 to 5, 10, whatever years it's requesting, there's a reason why they're asking for that, because they need you to be able to manage the expectations of that role when you step into it, and you may not be able to. And so they don't want to put you in a bad position either. So it's almost like to protect you as well. You know, I know it doesn't feel like that, but that's probably how it is. And another question, someone asked, how do you navigate shifting the exact industry you work in if your resume doesn't show you working in that field before? I think most people have heard like quantifiable skills, and how those skills, even in customer service, say you work in hospitality, retail, there are a lot of skills in those areas that are transferable into other industries. So you have to get really good with your vocabulary and honest with it, and really look at the keywords that they're looking for so that you can explain why the experience that you actually have is transferable and quantifiable for that role. So
I would even say for a resume, and I'm going to say it's like real fast because I know time-wise, I recommend often what is called a highlights resume, which instead of saying, for example, your resume says Ramsay recruiter, Ramsay or recruiter creative circle, recruiter this place, recruiter that place, and I'm trying to now do project management. What I would do instead is at the top have sections like project manager, managing budgets, project manager, managing teams, managing whatever, and put the bullet points of the specific related things, like Niena is saying, that I did in those roles. And at the bottom, just having like your traditional Creative Circle recruiter, here's the time frame. No bullets, just the jobs, title, location, etc. that's required. Because then the I is saying it has all the content you need there, but it's saying, oh, okay, they did this work, but under a different title. That might get you the thing you're seeking.
I'm going to see if we just have time for one more here. We talked a little bit about following up directly with a recruiter or different people involved in the hiring process of a particular position. There was a question about here, what are some best practices when doing a cold call with a recruiter or having an exploratory call with a recruitment team? I know that Ramsay and Maria have had both of these. If you just even want to share 1 or 2 points that you'd like to share with our guests.
Yeah, I mean, I think, so what are some best practices? So if you're doing a cold call or you're doing an exploratory call, the recruiter is just trying to understand a quick snapshot of your background, right? You don't need to get super nitty-gritty with it because we're not talking about a specific role. So you do want to kind of tell your journey, and then it's up to the recruiter to be like, oh, okay, let me put these pieces together. And these are the kind of roles that I generally staff for. This is where I think it makes sense. And be open and transparent, especially when it comes to salary, right? Because during exploratory calls or these cold calls, that's when you're setting an expectation for us. Like, hey, you know, I don't want to hear from you unless it's at least this. And don't be afraid, I would say, to give a range and give a true cutoff, because I might reach out to you with a number that, or I don't want to be afraid to reach out to you. Again, it goes back to being flexible, right? So it's, you know, if you're like, well, they're going to lowball me. No, I'm trying to make everyone money, right? Like, I want to give you what you're looking for, but that range helps me. And you might miss opportunities if you're afraid to give me a low end. So, yeah. So again, just telling your journey really high level, because it's going to be a brief call, and being transparent with the recruiter. That would be my suggestion.
And to be respectful to you all's time, thank you again for doing all of this for us. I know these are gems that no one has usually had access to. So thank you all so much. I was taking a few notes, and I just want to top line a few things before we log off that if you came in the middle, you may have missed, but follow up and detail. Job descriptions are there for a reason. Do not skip the fact that you need to use like appropriate keywords and phrases on your resume and your LinkedIn profile to push yourself up in the candidate pool. Use multiple channels, including your school that you went to, professional organizations, and LinkedIn and connections, personal relationships, business relationships, to make sure that you are touching all the bases and driving up all the lanes for you to get the job. Recruiters are your partner. Give them grace, and they want to see you win. They want to help you get the money that you deserve for the job, and also place you in the proper match for the position that's great for you. Ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions, but it's how you ask the questions, not the fact that you ask the question. Reach out, even if there is no job listed. If there's a company you admire, make sure you reach out to that company, show interest, show long-term commitment, and desire to stay there for long-term, and build relationships, and do not be transactional. Did I miss anything, ladies? Okay.
Crushed it.
I appreciate you all so much. And from the EBF Foundation, as well as everyone that's watched and will watch this later, you all have really shed light on a lot of things that I know this process of looking for a job and interviewing is quite mysterious sometimes. So thank you so much for being transparent, forthcoming with all this information. And I wish everyone so much luck on their job search. And if you ever get a chance to interact with any of these smart, sharp young women in your journey, be thankful, and, you know, reach out to everyone and stay in touch. So yeah. Any last words you all want to share? No?
Thank you.
Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you guys so much. We appreciate you at EBF and everyone watching. So have a wonderful day, everyone, and good luck on your job searches.